So good evening and welcome. Thank you for attending the regular council meeting of Monday, April 3rd of 2023, in person and online. As you may have noticed, Martin Houd, our Director General by interim, is not here this evening. He's on a holiday this week and will be back on April 11th, the Tuesday following the Easter weekend. Ian Delgarno has been covering Martin's task during this period. Thank you, Ian, for gracefully and competently taking on Martin's task during his absence. With Martin, it will be our 8th month together. We have been working hard at looking for a permanent DG. Through the determined persistence of Martin and the headhunter over the last 5 months, I was presented with 2 candidates. One candidate has come out ahead through the interview and psychometric evaluation process, showing a sound fit for Hudson's present situation and orientations. Council will have the opportunity to meet this candidate in the next few weeks. If all continues to go well, I expect that we will have a resolution to present at the next council meeting with a starting date in May of 2023. Since the last regular council meeting, there were 2 special council meetings in March. The first was held on March 14th and the second on March 23rd at Halcrow. A different resident was present at both meetings, and Darren steered the meeting in my absence on the 23rd, as I was in Gatineau. These are the second and third special council meetings this year. While holding special meetings between regular council meetings is not ideal for consistency of attendance by our regulars, it helps move along decisional items, keeping the momentum generated by Director General by interim. On March 14th, there were 5 resolutions. The first was for hiring of the Director of Culture and Recreation. Council members were not available until after the last council meeting to meet this candidate, and for her to start as soon as possible, thereby provide adequate notice to her employer. In holding the special meeting, this meant that she could start as soon as Tuesday next week. There was also a resolution for correction of minutes, where a resolution adopted in February should have included in the list of cultural organizations receiving a grant this extra line item. The total did not change, so it was really an error, a clerical error that was corrected with this resolution. Another resolution was for the hiring of an external firm for the loan of personnel. This is Infrastructel, who have worked for Hudson before, to compensate for the continued vacancy in urban planning and environment services. Also, the fourth resolution was for tabling of the 2021 and 2022 electoral report. So this is for the municipal elections that took place in November of 2021. The second special council meeting of March 23rd was for 1 resolution. This was for the signing of the agreement for Villa Wyman's provincial subsidy, the Entente Accès Logique with la SHQ and the Ministry of Ministerial Affairs, the MAMACH. The meeting minutes for both will be adopted this evening and made available in the next few days through the town's website. So as you may have noticed, with regards to hiring, it's not that we keep making the organization larger. It is that there's a lot of movement where in a resolution we may be hiring someone who doesn't even start. So they either have taken on another job before starting at the town, or in some cases, and it's happened multiple times in a few of seats, where they'll work for the town for a few months, then the seat sits vacant for a few months, and then we start all over again. So for example, in urban planning, in terms of an inspector or the environment technician, we've had multiple cycles of this, and this is why we're having to resort to hiring an external consultant to fill those seats and make sure that the permit process continues and that our inspections continue. So also in this sense, the preventionist that was hired in March, for example, did not start either. So that seat is vacant as well. With regards to the Director of Culture and Recreation, who will be starting next Tuesday, her name is Elizabeth Wainwright. She has accepted our offer to join the team, and she will be starting in her new functions at the town of Hudson next week. We're very excited about this. Elizabeth will take on the responsibilities previously held by Etienne Lavoie pertaining to public events, I should say, Etienne Lavoie and Laura McCaffrey. So with regards to public events, seasonal festivities and activities, the recreation, including the pool, day camps, and she will also help us steer the elaboration of Hudson's cultural policy. She is enthusiastic, autonomous, and able in multiple spheres. We're looking forward to her taking on this challenge. And also interesting is she comes from the region and has completed an undergraduate degree from UQAM in Action Culturelle from the Faculté de Communication, and also has a degree in theater at ACGEP level. With regards to public communications, we received a letter dated Friday, March 24th, inviting us again to join the City of Côte-Saint-Luc's court case challenging Law 96 before the courts. The cutoff date is April 20th. The motivation that they propose is that the law affects the city's capacity to provide affordable, fair, and equitable services, and to join other towns in solidarity against items that have been added to the law. So for example, items that have been added is where all contracts must be drawn up exclusively in French, which we do already. There is another article that is pertaining to where towns that don't have more than half of their residents with a mother tongue of English have a certain amount of days to pass a resolution to identify or to show that they want to remain bilingual. So again, this does not necessarily pertain to us. There are 3 other articles that are with regards to a search and seizure without notice and the performance of inspections and investigations based on an anonymous complaint in the workplace. So this was found to be particularly egregious from Côte-Saint-Luc. Also, there is an article with regards to there is the possibility of the ministry withholding subsidies or grants that have been reserved for a certain municipality if they fail to meet certain requirements in the French language law. Also, the last article that was added is for the obligation to impose disciplinary measures on employees that do not comply with the linguistic standards set out in the law. So all this to say that we mostly, I would say, comply to this. We're below the 50 employee target, but what I have suggested to council members is that rather than to confront the government, who are essentially, we are creatures of the provincial government, so rather than to incur that kind of direct confrontational and very divisive, in my sense, approach, would be to rather look to motivate Marilyn Picard and Marie-Claude Nichols in presenting better arguments to the National Assembly, and hopefully have better requirements or considerations for the impact that this will have, not just on the Anglophones, but also on Francophones. There's many Francophones who like to send their children to English school, and also this is increasingly, I'm hearing, creating a situation where international companies don't necessarily want to settle or to set up place in Quebec, the province of Quebec, considering the difficulty that this is placing on staffing and also the uncertainty that this is creating in terms of you never really know what's coming next and how far this will go. So I think there's a different approach, and I have committed to contacting a strategist in this sense. I have a phone call tomorrow afternoon to see exactly where we can take this. So rather than spend what I estimate to be around $5,000 for this first step of legal action, would be to spend up to that amount, but rather on a much more direct conversation and looking to challenge this, but from the standard approach. So comments always welcome on this. With regards to public information meetings, we are looking to hold one before the, I'm looking at Ian now, before the end of the month with regards to Pine Lake. The last series, well, the last round of public tenders, the first time actually in December, generated no interested parties. So we've gone back with slight modifications to the request. And this time there was only one single bid received that is conforming. So there were actually 2 bids, but only one of them was conforming. And this was at the beginning of March. The price is extremely high, but when we look at it, or we had it looked at with our consultant EXP, who's been helping us on this file throughout, they've broken it out and explained where the value and why this amount is actually probably closer to what we should be looking at if we want proper services. So I have asked that EXP come and explain to council and also to the ad hoc committee that we had for this. And once we have done that, we will then present to the public so that you can understand where we stand with regards to that file and see whether we go forward with the bid that we have received.
That was a bid for?
That's for rebuild. It's for, thank you. It is for the technical design and technical drawings for the redesign of the dam. So this is the smaller footprint dam, looking to bring it closer to what it is now. What we do know from the hydrological study that was mandated to another firm is that even though this present dam is 9 meters in length, in order to keep the level of water at present or previous before the break level, the dam would have to be 12 meters. So it won't go back to being its original footprint. It will be a little bit larger. And this is with the gates. So all of this will be presented to the public before we move forward with it. But it is an ongoing technical, so it is for the drawings.
Not the dam.
Not the dam, not the construction of the dam. It does include the environmental certificate applications, and it does include the site surveillance during the construction period. Yes, good. Yes, no, it's very complicated, so thank you, Darren. I just take it for granted because it's in my head. Yeah. Thank you.
You know, we know, now they know.
Yes, it is not including the construction of the dam. All right, with regards to advisory committees, TPAC will meet tomorrow evening as it does every month. We have moved the TPAC meetings to the day after council meetings in order to give the urban planning staff a longer period to prepare all of the resolutions for every month. We have also begun streamlining the meeting minutes to make these available to the public and also so that they are lighter and more efficient in preparation, translation, and transmittal to council in the decisional process. So we expect that soon we will be able to start posting these online. I would think that's about a month away, is the feeling that I'm getting. With regards to the Hudson Arts and Culture Council, their activities report for 2022 will be tabled this evening at item 7.4 and also made available online. It was translated in both languages. With regards to the Circulation Committee, does Benoit or Reid want to give an update on that, or do you want me to do my bit? Okay, go ahead.
We had our second meeting of the Circulation Committee a couple weeks ago. It was very productive. We would again like to take the opportunity to thank the SQ for sitting down and participating in this with us. Their counsel and recommendations have been incredibly helpful, and just having them here and present in town and participating in this is very reassuring to us. That they're here and they're ready to work with us to solve the circulation issues that have come up in town. There's a few items that will be coming up on the agenda tonight that we'll be discussing. This is basically finishing off the backlog of issues that have been accumulating over the last couple of years. Ish.
Or more.
Or more.
Or decades.
And next month we'll start tackling new requests that have come in. One thing that won't be on the agenda tonight, but it is being looked at, is Cambridge. There was a request to have some speed bumps put in. The first steps that the Circulation Committee will be doing is 2 speeding analyses on the street, one that should be taking place now or in the very near future, and a second one that takes place in the summer during golf season so that we can see if there is, in fact, speeding issue on the road, and if there is, if it's throughout the entire year or if it's only during the on-season or potentially the off-season. And based on the findings of those two analyses, we will recommend next steps on potential education or traffic calming measures.
Thank you. Benoit, is there anything you want to add? No? That's good. Senior committee is next, so I will give you la parole dans une minute. Ça te va?
What's that?
Senior committee in a minute? Do you have anything you want to bring? So I just want to remind everyone that the town adopted a seniors policy with an action plan in 2021. This is available in paper and digital format online in French and in English. So the seniors committee is composed of several people. We will be adding 2 people this evening who are related to the 55 plus group that was set up by 2 residents. So Benoit, did you want to add? There's a lot of activities every Tuesday, Thursdays.
Well, one thing that we can add is last week we had DSQ doing a meeting about scam, and it was really nice, and it was attended by 80 persons.
Oh, wow.
So we were lacking chair, so it's a good sign. So at some point I will discuss with the rest of us. It could be really interesting to do it at the evening time for the rest of the population. Mm-hmm. It was great.
Is it about an hour?
It depends how long we asked them, because she had material for 2 hours and she was cut off after like an hour. And there was many questions from the seniors, and it was great.
So this is Catherine Sénéchal.
Yes.
She is the community relations person at the SQ. She does a lot of the rounds with the different schools and sensitizes the kids as to their resources as well in terms of aggression and others, but also with seniors. She works with seniors. She works with any difficult case, and she's a wonderful liaison for us. Laura's met with her, and I believe you still continue to meet with her. But Benoit gets to work with her on a regular basis.
We'll do senior day again, I think in June or July, one day where we'll do door-to-door again for like 10 hours.
Yeah.
So it's really great to work with her.
She's a great person.
I would never thought I would have said that about SQ officer, but.
Oh, no. All right. SDC, do you want to give us an update?
Sure. So there's been a lot of work going on with regards to coming up with some type of help for the merchants and getting the merchants together. And so one of those things was the SDC. So right now we're at the stage of kind of gathering everything. We recently received a whole ton of documents that are really helping put the pieces of the puzzle together. We've been doing ongoing work with a lawyer that specializes in SDCs or has a lot of experience with them. He's been fantastic in helping out. Dev has also shown an interest in collaborating or offering some resources.
Explain who Dev is.
Oh, Développement économique Vaudreuil-Soulanges. So basically their interest is to help promote all the municipalities of the MRC, or Vaudreuil-Soulanges, I guess.
Economic development and tourism.
About?
Economic development and tourism, right? So
we're planning on bringing everyone together, inviting everyone out again for a meeting likely in May. So far from the interest I've gathered, it seems like it might be a Monday or Tuesday evening. And so the goal of this meeting is to kind of present the different options, to kind of lay out all the cards on the table and to kind of try and see what the next steps are. Some of the recommendations for the SDC, if that's the route that the merchants decide to go, would be changing some of the items, including, one of the big hindrances was the quorum, so the number of people required to reach quorum, the actual territory, the fee structure, the fee payment. So in the past, it was tacked on to the landlords of the commercial properties, and then their responsibilities to get it down to the merchants. So there's some better ways of doing those things. So those are some of the things that if the SDC is the route we're going, then we have some really good suggestions from the lawyer.
Very promising. Thank you. finally, getting somewhere with the SDC. All right, with regards to culture, the survey that was prepared by the Hudson Arts and Culture Council, this will be asking for feedback and preferences on cultural offerings, past, present, and future in Hudson. The survey has been printed and is being prepared for mail out to the public. I don't know, Laura, if you have a clearer date on that. I haven't received a date. I know they met with you with regards to an avis public. What is it? Yeah.
Not before the end of the month.
Not until the end of the month. The difficulty is that it's on a legal page, printed both sides, and one's in English, one's in French, and the question becomes, how do we mail both without incurring double the costs? I think that's really the issue. The poll will also be available, or the survey will also be available to fill out online, and actually it would be even better if they filled it out, if everyone filled it out online, because it will reduce the amount of transfer of information that will have to take place by the HANCC. Also, with regards to the Cultural Policy Committee, so you'll see this evening that we will be presenting a resolution in the sense where the call for candidates was announced at the start of February of 2023's meeting. This committee will exist until the adoption of the cultural policy, which is estimated now for the spring of 2024. The reason this keeps slipping forward is the poll will serve as the starting point for the data with which we will be working. And also we wanted to make sure that this new director would be with us during the process. So it just meant that we delayed and slid the schedule a little bit. With regards to the specific mandate then for this committee, it would be to develop the policy with the assistance of our consultant, who is Lizard et la Ville, the Town and Council, and the Hudson Arts and Culture Council. The composition of this group is intended to be as broad as possible. There are 19 members now, which will be a large group to manage. I'm looking forward to it, but I know I get a lot of raised eyebrows. So no candidates were turned away, and I think that was the initial intent, is to cross-contaminate as much as possible and to get as broad a view as possible of what constitutes culture and everything else in Hudson. With regards to meetings with the mayor, so these have been customary since May of 2022. This month, the meeting will take place this coming Saturday, April the 8th, at Halcrow Cottage from 10 a.m. till 12 p.m. The event reminder was posted online, and I saw it as well on the bulletin, so thank you, Laura. My present focus continues to be heritage, but I'm adding also curiosity with regards to local history. And of course, this is all in keeping with the preparation of the town's cultural policy and how to make it as true as possible to where we live. I remain open to receive any questions on any topics of interest. For example, last month, there were a dozen people who attended. I would say that most of the room was Francophone, which was interesting. And the topic was mostly the nuisance of noise and the loss of quality of life created by motorcycle leaf blowers and such. And so how to continue developing good relations with your neighbors and to build I guess awareness, but also consideration as we receive newer residents who come in, and also as our demographics are changing. So it was a very interesting conversation, because as each topic each person raised their topic, there was this common thread that sort of developed through the meeting, and they ended up sort of mediating themselves through the process. So it was well done. From March 22nd to the 24th, I attended the third Grand Rassemblement in Gatineau on the invitation of the Gatineau Mayor, France Bellil, in collaboration with the Chief Dylan White Duck. So this is the Grand Rassemblement between chiefs and mayors. It was an interesting couple of days and evenings that were replete with exchanges and presentations from teams of mayors and chiefs sharing pathways to reconciliation through concrete projects and seizing opportunities for collaborative partnerships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities all over the province of Quebec. It was also the first time that the Grand Rassemblement was connected to the Grand Cercle économique des peuples autochtones, and it was definitely a period where it was heartwarming to see the quantity of innovative projects, but also a lot of hope was shared and present with regards to present and future generations. So I look forward to developing relationship across the water. I certainly got to meet the mayor of Aucun. We spent a couple of hours together, an evening together, and I think it was good for me to understand exactly the tensions that are occurring at present in Aucun with Kanesatake and the increase in organized crime on the other side of the water. And for them, their reality is very different than it is in most Indigenous communities. So that was very interesting. With regards to different legal cases that the town is aware or involved in, so the first one is really the one that we've been keeping an eye out for, is the one where Nikenko is against the general prosecutor. This is for that certificate of authorization that was withdrawn from the Ministry of Environment. So where Nikenko, the owner of Sandy Beach, and when I say Nikenko, it's Nikenko and the developers related to that project, are essentially requiring the judge to restore the original certificate of authorization that was issued in 2014 as per the original law. The law has changed since, and also we know that since the flooding of 2017-2019, the conditions have changed. I'd like to thank the group of Protection of Sandy Beach. I received a flood of letters which were not always welcome, because when I receive a large number of letters that I do my best to answer to individually, when I did suggest that instead we meet, they did take me up on that offer, and we did have coffee together with a few of their representatives, and we were able to explain or express our concerns on respective sides, and I was able to explain what was on the table on our sense, what we are working on, and also we need to continue to show good faith. It is our intent that if we can convince at some point any owner, it's not just Sandy Beach, but any owner who may feel that any of these protection measures that we're putting in place are egregious, we'd like them to think that they can come and meet and negotiate with us. Also, the demolition request for 498 Main, as some of you may know, the decision from the demolition committee was appealed by the owner in April. So this month, the owner will be invited to present his request to council members in person and in a private meeting. The project will be reviewed by all on council, as it is set in the law, and a new public meeting will be held where anyone wishing to be heard is welcome to present their position. The date for this public meeting has not yet been set. Also, in the case of 498 Main, the owner has also submitted an emergency request to the court for the urgent demolition of the building based on its condition and state of dangerosity, or his claim of the condition and state of dangerosity. So those are two separate files for the same property. Otherwise, with regards to negotiations with the Legion, these continue to go well. They have added, today we received a letter, I'm looking at Darren because usually it's Darren and I who go to these meetings. We've pretty much put the process in the hands of Martin Houd, who is our Director General by interim. So in the discussion group, we have been meeting with 2 people, so they've added 2 others to the group, who are Bill Sampson and Jay De Laurenta. So there are now 4. So the exchanges continue to be extremely positive, and we hope that we will get to a firm agreement within a near future. I could go on and on and on. I do want to say a special thank you to Jay De Laurenta and the Soulange Irish Society for all their work and joviality leading up to the Hudson St. Patrick's Parade. A wonderful time was had with them during the months of February and March through their fundraising activities for 2 neonatal units for the new hospital here in Vaudreuil-Soulanges. I am told that they are midway in their goal of raising $70,000. The parade is also said to have drawn around 24,000 people this year and certainly brought a surge in sales for many shops, restaurants, and bars in what is otherwise a quieter period of the year. So Hudson continues to be a leader in the region and beyond in the quality and welcome experience. We have also suggested to the Soulanges Irish Society that if they'd like to organize a Christmas parade, perhaps a shorter one, that we would be interested in supporting them as well. So we're certainly looking into that. I've heard that they're interested. I also want to give a special thank you to Marilyn Picard, this is the member of the National Assembly of Soulanges Riding, for confirming the provincial financial support for the project of Villa Wyman. This is 18 units for affordable housing here in Hudson, and for which Council adopted a resolution at the Special Council meeting on March 23rd, and also to Marilyn and her political attaché, Jeanne Turbide, for putting me in touch very rapidly with the political coordinator at the Ministry of Environment, as I was looking for an update on the Sandy Beach Certificate of Authorization, and also looking to understand if the ministry had additional information on hand in making present and future decisions. This is with regards to the quality of the environment milieu that is there. So she responded within minutes and organized this meeting, so I'm very, very appreciative. Otherwise, I will do an update with Public Works, as Ian provided me a great synopsis. So April is the spring cleaning time. Street sweeping has started and will be over in the first few weeks of April. The entire town should be cleaned. Following the street sweeping, the Public Works crew will be patching potholes. April is also the month to report roadside damage due to snow removal, I guess through our request a system that is online on the town's website. The crews have already identified several areas that need repairing, and we ask residents to report the damage before the end of the month to help with the planning of the repairs. I've mentioned where we're at with regards to the Pine Lake Dam, and I just want to make sure. I know there will be a question coming up, so I will save it for the answer to you, but asking me on the progress for that first interim controls measure, what we call the RCI, so Règlement de Contrôle Intérimaire, for the protection of natural areas. So I will give that update when you come up to the mic. And otherwise, upcoming activities, registrations open today for a Tree for Earth Day, where 100 trees will be given away, first come, first serve. Earth Day is on April 22nd, and it is a limited quantity for 1 tree per address. So please look online for the form to fill it out. Do we know what types of trees, Laura? Is that given on the website?
Yeah, it's on the website, but there's a blue spruce, a Carolina hornbeam, and a Pennsylvania cherry tree.
Ah, those sound great. All right, and also Easter weekend is next weekend. Next Sunday, there is the annual Easter party from 1 to 3 p.m. with a petting zoo and Easter egg hunt for children 2 to 10, and this is reserved for Hudson residents only. Did you want to speak to the film festival briefly?
From April 12th to 16th, 2023, the Hudson Film Festival will be taking place at a few different locations across town. It is 5 days of the very best of Canadian films. I would strongly urge anyone who loves film or loves Hudson and loves supporting a really cool group and to get out and come and watch some movies. And a huge thanks to Clint Ward, who works very hard every year to put this together. So thank you, Clint.
Absolutely, thank you. So the opening day feature film is Buffy St. Marie, Carry It On. It will be at 7:30, and there will be a few words given by the Mohawk elder from Ganawagi, Joe Diam, who has graciously agreed and accepted the invitation. Also, on Tuesday, April 25th, at 7 p.m. here. There will be a public conversation with Luc Maurice, who is the owner, or part owner now, of Le Groupe Maurice, so all of those residential retirement homes, sorry. There is one like the Félix in Vaudreuil, Darion. And the question I have asked him is, comment développer différemment? I expect most of this conversation to be in French, but I do know he's bilingual. I'm sure he would answer in English as well. The idea is to invite promoters, real estate agents, members of the public, anyone to come and hear how he was able to insert some of these pretty key service-providing projects in some very tight urban spaces. His first projects were smaller and definitely custom fit to their environment, and I learned a lot when I got to work with him 20 years ago, I believe now. Anyway, I'm very pleased that he's accepted to come, and I do invite you to come and meet him and to hear about his relationship, the relationships that he builds with the neighborhood, essentially. Also, final notice, our final announcement. The third week of April will be Hudson's Earth Week cleaning up that Rob Delorme organizes every year. So we're just waiting for the snow to melt. And anyway, we thank Rob again for launching this every year and getting our streets cleaned. Did you want to meet Meals on Wheels?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, March 26, we received a notice from volunteer extraordinaire Barbie Taylor concerning Meals on Wheels, and it's a little posthumous here, unfortunately, but heroes often wear aprons. National Meals on Wheels Week, March 19th to the 25th. So this is a little after the fact, but at least I believe it deserves some acknowledgement in the people that participate in this. So Chloe had asked me to do a brief intro, and just by coincidence, as I was going through my notes tonight and doing a bit of research, we got a very nice email from the president of Meals on Wheels, Mr. Simon Lajamediere, which helped me out greatly. So I'll just read that. I'll take 2 seconds and read that out. And it's a good synopsis, and it covers essentially what they do. So the message is directed to our mayor, dear Chloe. Thanks to you and your administration for your generous donation of $1,000 to Meals on Wheels organization. This donation helps to sustain our ability to feed those who are less fortunate and in need. Last year, we were able to serve over 3,000 meals, and despite the rising food costs, we were able to keep the average meal cost to $5.95 per person. I think that's incredible. Thanks to the judicious buying of our budget-minded cooks, we hope we will not have to raise meal costs to those that are generally on fixed incomes. Once again, thank you and the town for your support. And I want to use this as an opportunity to thank all of the volunteers for all of their hard work and dedication. So.
Thank you, Darren. No, I certainly support. Thank you. I think I also forgot the garage sale where the proceeds go to, and when is that, Laura?
That's in early June.
It's in June? Okay. We've got a few months to go. All right. Well, thank you. So moving on now to item 1.1. Thank you for your patience. That only took 37 or 38 minutes this evening. I try to keep it tight, but it does show how much we get done every month. It may not seem with our list of resolutions, but we are busy. Or I should say Ian's very busy. We just push a lot. Okay, Melissa's very busy, and Laura's very busy. All right, so item 1.1, the adoption of this evening's agenda. So you have it here. It was available online. It stays untouched. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Reed Thompson, seconded by Peter Mate, that the agenda of the regular council meeting of April 3rd, 2023 be and is hereby adopted as submitted. Are there any opposition? En français, vas-y.
1.1, adoption de l'ordre du jour. Donc, c'est la résolution pour que l'ordre du jour de la séance de ce soir, 3 avril 2023, soit adopté tel que soumis sans changement.
Merci. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. Confirmation of minutes, section 2, item 2.1. This is for the confirmation of the March 2023 meeting minutes, so this is the regular meeting. Whereas Council has reviewed the minutes of March 6th, 2023 regular meeting and reviewed the meetings, so of the special meeting of March 14th, 2023 and the minutes of March 23rd of 2023 special meeting. This resolution is to approve all the above mentioned minutes as submitted.
Item 2.1. Considérant que le Conseil a vérifié le procès-verbal de la séance ordinaire du 6 mars dernier, ainsi que celui de la séance extraordinaire du 14 mars et celui de la séance extraordinaire du 23 mars, la résolution vise à approuver l'ensemble des procès-verbaux précités.
Merci. I will need a mover and a seconder for the approval of these 3 meeting minutes. Benoit Blais, supported by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? I see none. It is carried unanimously. First question period. So please come to the mic and I will alternate between room and online. How many people are online?
18 people.
18. And we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 in house, but 2 of them are spouses, so we don't count them. So 8. Sorry.
Ready to go?
Yes, please go ahead.
Eugene Lear, 75 Austinvale. I have a question. The start of this was in early December 2021 when there was a moratorium put on any development, and subsequently in February 2022, Council adopted a map that showed
I think she wants to make sure that, just a minute, so that you're well heard online, I think is what's happening.
So that territories that were pointed out by Eco2Urb survey that the town paid for were restricted from any development. And Council is asked to have time to do a new urban plan. Is there any dates or what timeline are we thinking of?
It certainly was our hope to get through this process sooner. As you've heard, we've had a shortage in staff, which has certainly slowed down the work in-house, but the consultants have continued to work on this. We are now at the 3rd step of this process, and our goal is to complete the changes, the specific changes to the bylaws by, and this is where that date will continue to slide, we're aiming for August, and then there is then the approval period and the review period by upper levels of government. So by the time it is released, the best date would be the very end of this year, more likely to be the very beginning of next year. And it's not because we're not doing our best to get that done, it is really shortage of labor. And that is one of the reasons as well we split our urban planning was spending most of his time actually running events and recreation activities when we really needed full focus in urban planning. So by splitting that division and now having a person who takes over all those tasks, that person will be starting next week. So releasing Etienne of his other duties and giving him more time to focus. It hasn't stopped us from proceeding with the work. It's just been slower than we had originally anticipated.
So in effect, what you're telling me is that the moratorium you put on I think it was the 4th or 8th of December 2021 is now probably ending up in sometime in 2025?
No, 2024, early 2024.
Early 2024, so
correct.
In effect a year from now.
Not a full year, but it looks about 8 or 9 months. Yeah, I understand it's a long period.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions online?
Marcus Owen.
Marcus, you have the floor.
Marcus Owen, 58 Rue Birch Hill. I preface this by saying I was not going to bring up this subject this evening because I was going to fill out this excellent request form that's on the town website. but the mayor has just brought up the fact that the street cleaning is going to go on for perhaps several more weeks. I thought hopefully it was finishing today. The reason I bring up the subject was some damage was done to my property by the street cleaning team by backing across the driveway and the flower beds, etc. But not only that, I traced them down, I followed them down, and it's really a safety warning that I think somebody in the town needs to talk to the contractor to just ask them to slow down. They're probably, the faster they can get the job done, the better. But I found their driving to be reckless. I'm, pretty upset about the damage that was done to the front of my property. And I will fill out this form. I'm not quite sure which section. Perhaps it goes to roads on the request form, or maybe it goes to public nuisance complaint. But I would just ask that somebody in the administration talk to the contractor sooner rather than later, since obviously they're going to be around for some time. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. I think Ian might answer us on that one. I think he's saying don't bother filling out the service request because he wrote it down, is what I think that gesture was.
Hi, Marcus.
Hi, Ian.
I've already noted it down for you, so you don't have to make another request.
Okay, thank you. When you got the gist, if you want to talk to me, just give me a call and I'll fill you in the details.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thanks,
Ian,
everybody.
how long is the street cleaning? How many weeks?
Should only be done within 2 weeks.
2 weeks, because we do have 70 kilometers of roads, right? So they don't all get done in one day.
79.
79. We keep acquiring roads, I guess.
Well, I think at the rate they were doing it today, they could have it done in a week. So maybe it's on a piece basis.
Thank you, Marcus. I'm sure that Ian will call them tomorrow and
thank you very much.
Rectifier
Appreciate
le
it.
tir. Yes, please come to the mic. I think it's below.
I got it here.
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me? Yeah.
I can hear you, but online I'm not sure if they can hear you. Oui, ça marche. It's
Perfect.
good. Yeah.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ryan Young. While I am not a resident of Hudson, I do operate my business out of 72 Cameron, a restaurant known as Wendigo Hudson. I'm here this evening to attempt to follow up on a letter that I sent last year regarding temporary terraces to be built during the summer seasons on Cameron, and to hopefully touch on what I mentioned last year about extending that to be a more permanent measure, and I mean permanent in the sense of solely during the summer months. I know that there is a bylaw in place that requires every business to have a certain amount of public parking, et cetera. I know that there is also a possible exemption from that with the ability to pay to rent the parking spaces. I know that that was waived over the last couple of years, and with the previous council, and some of you guys were, if you were on the previous one or still on this one, you guys helped out the businesses a lot by allowing these temporary terraces to be built in town, especially when we were down to 50% capacity. It was a big help. I'm hoping to sway the idea of that into a more permanent and successful thing going forward. I know that personally, my business brings in people from anywhere within a 45-kilometer radius of the town who come in and they'll sit on my terrace, they'll sit on Juniper's terrace, they'll sit on Oscar's terrace, who I should have mentioned I am here on behalf of them as well, speaking to this, you know, it's, we're Canadians, there's not a lot of nice weather that we get. People like to be outside in the summer, and it is more of a way to help our businesses prosper in the long term, to allow to have this again. I've spoken with the businesses across the street from us, Frank and Weenie, which is a boutique there, mineral manufacturer, who have said that it's beneficial to them, you know, the more time someone sits looking at something, the more likely they are to go across the street and say like, oh, what is that, you know, finally. So I think that not just on a personal level, I think for the other businesses in town, it can really bring something. And I think it makes Cameron look nicer to have that sort of outdoor energy that goes on and everything. With that, I know that the last couple of years, the construction of them, the uniformity of them may have been an issue and stuff like that. We're more than willing to meet with TPAC or with the town council and everything to figure out a way to make it you know, if you want them all to look the same, we can construct them all to look the same. I know that there may have been safety concerns raised about the fact that it's by a street, but we do rent the concrete bollards that are there to stop any oncoming traffic. And personally, I don't see it as being any more dangerous as walking down a sidewalk that doesn't have a guardrail on it, because anything might happen, you know. Aside from that,
so I will try and bring together the different items that were discussed around the table. Sure. And if I've forgotten any, I invite anyone to add to them. The terraces were allowed by previous council as a Band-Aid solution due to COVID, the fact that, as you mentioned, there was a reduced capacity within, so it was for safety measures, but also to make sure that you could continue to run and operate. The discussion that took place last year is that the measure had been extended in Montreal with regards to La Société des Alcools, right, that had extended the permits. And so we looked to, should we be doing the same thing? I think because the temporary measures were just gradually being lifted. And then the discussions that we had is that this sets how do you say, an unfair advantage to some who then are able to extend their selling footprint, whereas not all other commerces. So how are we fair with this? And also to know that that whole strip of parking on that side of Cameron belongs to the town, so it's public owned. It's not like parking that belongs to a commerce. So you're taking away parking, but you're also acquiring more space for you to sell. There was the safety issue with regards to circulation, the danger of cars that could run into it. There was also uniformity in terms of, look, how do we control that? We did discuss, you know, do we want to put l'occupation du territoire, you know, a fee on permanent or temporary or summer seasonal occupation of the public terrain. But the consensus around the table was that this had been accepted as a temporary measure and certainly should not be made into a permanent one, especially because it favors a very few and not a majority of merchants. And do I have it okay?
Yeah, there's some concern with the safety issue as well.
The safety, yeah, which I brought up. So safety, look, how do we make this equitable to others, right? But I think having an SDC would be a perfect place for that type of conversation to happen with all other merchants, or a good representation of the other merchants around, so that they could hear your point, which you brought beautifully this evening, and could say, oh, that makes sense, you're right. If we bring more animation to the street, it will actually benefit other stores, not just me. So you're bringing value to others. It's not just how many plates you get to sell. So I think that conversation, there's room for it to evolve, but this year the decision that we made out of fairness was...
If I may just touch on a few of the rebuttals that you made. The thing that you're referring to in regards to the RACJ, what that was essentially was a temporary fast-track granting of a liquor permit to businesses that were granted a temporary terrace and everything like that. The government is still more than willing to approve liquor permits for terraces, as they do for every other restaurant that has a terrace, and even in the city of Montreal, where people pay the city to rent the parking spaces to build a summer terrace, they have to still extend their liquor permit out there. So the thing that the RACJ was granting temporarily, it wasn't so much that it was temporary, it was a temporary fast tracking of the liquor permit, which is part of why I wanted to come tonight as well, is that because in the previous years, it was granted in 3 to 5 business days, whereas now it takes a little bit longer, like 1 to 2 months at most, as if any new business was applying for a liquor permit from the get-go. In regards to the public parking versus the private parking and everything like that, the lots that myself and the pizzeria and Juniper are situated on, there is private parking behind those, and as much as it may come off as a selfish argument, the 3 parking spaces in front of my business are usually occupied by myself, another staff member, and my brother Reed, who is my business partner. In the summer months when the terrace is picked up, we park in the private parking in the back. So for me, I don't think it really makes a difference in regards to that. And then just for the final thing in the terms of fairness, I understand that some people were when they took over their businesses or moved in or constructed or whatever, were able to build right away or have already in the places that they rented an outdoor space, which in the interest of fairness, like you were saying about me selling more plates and everything like that, I don't want it to feel as though we're being penalized just because of the places that we had originally chose to put our businesses didn't come with an outdoor space, that I would even argue that the places that have it built in already are already at an advantage.
That comes at a premium, right? If there is a terrace, it's sort of like when you're buying a house with a pool, or maybe pools are not a good idea,
I
but
understand that.
So that would come at a premium, and your place would have cost you more. But I think it's worth continuing the conversation with the merchants. Maybe it's an item that can be raised in May, and they can see if there's something they want us to develop. But certainly there would have to be an occupation cost to the public domain, and then the question is the quantity of parking, because I think we'd totaled 7 get lost with the different terraces, and then how do we then improve on the look and feel, because not all of them are built with the same attention to detail.
Yeah, and like I said, we're more than happy to meet to do that. I'm just hoping that we can find a way to advance it to be done for this summer as well. And I know that there are new things being constructed all over town. I know there's the place right at the corner of St. John and Cameron right there. I don't know about how, I know that there's commercial space on the bottom. Are they being withheld to the same bylaws? Is there enough parking for those commercial spaces out there? Is that being looked at?
They have underground parking.
For the residents? Is it for the
businesses
businesses as well?
And they have parking on the back alley, as far as I remember, yeah.
Okay. And then I know that they happen to be 1 or 2 businesses in town who have built structures during COVID and upon opening that maybe encroach a little bit onto town property. So I'm just curious as to whether or not those are being addressed as well.
Typically, any new construction has been done very much by the rules, but I think Peter wanted to add something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, so I think that it comes down to, council doesn't necessarily want to take a decision on one business. We want to hear from all the merchants. And if the merchants come together, whether it be via an SDC, whether it be through DEV, whether it be through any type of association, they determine, you know what, we'd like to see these terraces, then we'll get to work and evaluate what that looks like. What's the fee? How do we get the look and feel that we want, the safety? And so that's not going to happen for this summer, but it could happen for next summer. That's just something that needs to come to the table.
As a priority from the merchant community. Yeah.
Very well then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well presented. Online?
Got Jim Duff.
Jim Duff. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, good evening. I have 3 questions, but I'll keep it to 2 and I'll save the last. And it'll be a lot less time than anybody else has taken. Rhea, concerning your comments on Côte St. Luke's Bill 96 challenge, what, if any, impact will the law have on Hudson's procedures, infrastructure like signage, council meetings, public meetings, communications with citizens? Have you made an inventory, given that the law has gone through several iterations? Has the town, I know we did as council, but I don't know if you've done this to find out what is going to be the impact under Bill 96, and perhaps even have a conversation with the Office québécois de la langue française to find out. That would be my first question. My second.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want me to answer that one first, or do you want to give
me?
Sure.
Yeah.
My understanding is that we already apply the requirements. We would certainly have to keep I guess not necessarily a registry, but a tighter hold on those. We, of course, have the usual street names and such that we're lagging behind, right, where we're supposed to add rue to the street signs and change. I think we have 4 or 5 streets that need to be renamed. But otherwise, because we are a smaller entity, I don't think it necessarily has a big impact on us. But Melissa, when I'd asked you, it was... Ta réponse, c'est pas très significatif, mais veux-tu? Vas-y.
Quelques ajustements au niveau de les offres d'emploi, les exigences on ne peut pas exiger pour tous les postes le bilinguisme des personnes. Donc, il y a des petits ajustements à ce niveau-là. Puis aussi, les communications avec les citoyens demeurent à la langue du choix du citoyen. Mais si on communique avec une entreprise ou une organisation enregistrée, nos communications devront être en français. Puis également pour les octrois de contrats, on doit, avant d'octroyer...
tout ça, non? Je pense qu'on le fait déjà.
C'était au choix. C'est comme par exemple avec une compagnie, si c'est une compagnie depuis des années, on échange en anglais avec, on échangeait en anglais avec. La différence,
so to translate, and I may forget pieces, but in terms of job applications, we wouldn't be able to state that we're looking for someone who is bilingual. With entities that we are contractually engaged with, we would have to communicate with them in French. We can continue to communicate with people in the language of their choice. And the fourth one was?
When we issue contracts, we have to check that the company is officiellement, pour la charte, elle a un document qui atteste.
Donc ça va être requis pour tout le monde? C'est comme un certificat que tout le monde va avoir?
Oui. Actuellement, c'est pour les compagnies qui emploient plus de 50 employés. Puis, dans un an, on devra le faire pour les compagnies de 25 employés plus.
OK. So the fourth one is to make sure that when we are engaging the services of a company that they have this certificate that asserts that they are compliant to the language law. In a year, well, right now that requirement is for companies with 50 employees and more, and in a year it'll be for companies with 25 employees and more. So it's the restrictions are getting not tougher necessarily, but more demanding. The question continues to be, what is this obsession? You know, this constant fear, but that's the conversation I'd like to have with the M&A. Jim, did you want to add something to that?
Well, I guess my question was, I remember that the town used to have Phil Toon as the liaison avec le gouvernement, but I don't know if you've named anybody as liaison, and I believe that was part of the law that you have to have.
Actuellement, c'est Melissa Legault. She is our lawyer and town clerk. So have we named you? We've named her.
Okay, it's already been done?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Second thing, I recall that the town had an available as accumulated surplus of slightly over $8 million in 2021. That was according to the former treasurer's financial statements in August 22. What is the accumulated surplus if it's still $8 million? Have we spent down some of that? And the reason I'm asking, of course, is bylaw 10.2, where you're putting a reserve, basically a preemptive reserve on lots in town, properties in town. So I want to know how much money do we have available to take?
I don't remember the number, and I will look at Benoit in a minute. But where was I headed with this? We've used some of that money for road resurfacing last year, if you remember correctly. And is there anything else, Benoit? Can you help me with that answer?
I don't know the number, but yes, we use it for road and
a bit for the budget too, about 600,000 maybe for the budget I have in mind. You don't remember?
I guess the best thing will give him the answer the next month.
Yeah, or this week. I'll look into that, Jim, and give it to you. But the number should still be on the increasing side because we were not staffed to our max capacity last year. That ended up with a surplus as well.
Okay, and I know that you're converting into long-term debt Bellevue and part of the downtown core main road.
And the rest, and there was part of Main Road as well. The widening of Main Road was also 1.89 million is what's in my head. But the widening and the surfacing was actually from the surplus. So the original width was the 1.89. The number, the actual contract came in less, but then we had to do extra drainage, so it kind of brings it close to that number again. But so yes, we've been using it more for roads than anything else, and I think there were, honestly, I'd have to look into it. You're asking me now in April. As you know, my numbers are probably closer in January, December.
I know that you're not obliged to tell citizens how you're spending the accumulated surplus, but I'd like to know whether you feel there's a moral and ethical imperative to let us know how it's being spent.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with sharing that information. I think it's accessible. We're not doing anything unusual with it. If anything, it's nice to know that we have a buffer considering the uncertainty of prices at this time, right? So it gives us a bit of leeway at the budget preparation time.
But it's on the resolution when we spend money from the surplus too, so it's...
Yeah, it always, you remember this, Jim, it says whether it is, c'est quoi le terme? There's a word allocated to a specific line item in the budget, or if it's from the unallocated surplus.
We did that, but we no longer do that.
On fait plus?
We do. I think we still do.
We seem to think that we still do it, but I'll keep an eye out for it.
No, we do.
OK. Dans la MVH, Melissa, corrige-moi si c'est pas vrai, mais dans la MVH maintenant, il n'y a aucune mention de quel fonds, de quel tiroir ça vient l'argent.
I'll keep an eye out for it, Jim, but I think we still do it. And she's nodding. I don't know if you see her on camera, but she's nodding.
OK, good. OK, thanks.
And I will get that information for you because I should update my memory. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Are there questions in the room? I see Helen standing up. Hello, Helen.
Hi, Helen Kurgatsky, 22 Quarry Point. I have a question for number 9.3, the road network. You're going to right-of-way requests between Royal View and Sugarbush. Could you please explain what that is?
Royal View, oh yes, there was a request that was submitted to the Circulation Committee. It was reviewed by the Circulation Committee, and the resolution will be presented, and you will see what the decision is. But it was a request by someone living down Royal View.
Why?
Requesting that because of, I think it was flooding, that there may be flooding that might close Royal View, that they wanted an alternate means of access. It's one of the individual residential homes at the bottom of Royal View.
An alternative if something happens on Royal View that they could go up through Sugarbush and Quarry Point to get out. Is that
Correct.
The idea?
Correct.
So would that mean changing or adjusting the road surfacing? Or the link between...
Well, the resolution will be very clear, and I think you'll be content with the direction that it has taken. I'm not trying to be obtuse.
No, okay. And then just a corollary, talking about traffic and everything that happens on Royal View, there was this council, I think, had commissioned a traffic study in the past, and I wonder, could I have an update? What happened with that traffic study?
So a traffic study was for the head of Bellevue and for the circulation situation at the elementary school at Mount Pleasant. I believe the Circulation Committee has looked at it and has asked the la direction, so the director of the school, to sit and meet with the Circulation Committee to see how to move forward together. Is that correct?
Pearson.
You can add the information.
But there had also been a study commissioned in eventual development of the Sandy Beach project. For
circulation, I have not seen that one. I don't think we haven't addressed it.
I think you're talking about the old one that was done in 2019, I believe, by the actual developer.
Oh, by the developer, okay, but there was nothing done by the town? I think it's, okay, no. I misunderstood.
No.
Okay, so that was the developer, and is that available to the public, that study?
The 2019? I don't even think I've seen it.
Public.
Or, actually, I still was on council, so I would have seen it.
Okay.
You probably have seen it, too.
Okay, thank you very much, thank you.
There was something that came up while you were talking about roads, but anyway. Okay. Oh, I know. The Circulation Committee has been mandated by council to look at the circulation and parking situation at the Jack Layton Park. So at some point in the next couple of months, we'll see what comes from that. Did you want to add something, Benoit? Is that correct? Okay. That's good. All right, questions online?
Yeah, June Penny.
Hi, June.
Hi. So my question tonight relates back to an issue that I've raised before. It's regarding the lot that's just west of 182. This week, the construction has started, So the excavation is happening, and it's very disturbing because, like you've mentioned, it's a flood zone and a landslide zone. So with that heavy equipment that is there, has anybody from the town been checking on the situation to see if it's not jeopardizing the base of our road?
There was an inspection done today, and there'll be another one done tomorrow.
Yeah, and also, as you know, I know the flood waters very well, and I'd like the town to, I'd like to request that the town keep a very close eye on the flood zone lines where the water comes is probably higher than what you have on paper, but it's a big concern for me using Main Road all the time. And all the trucks, heavy trucks going down there. To me, logically, it doesn't make any sense that a house is being allowed to be built there. But we've already been through this, Chloe, and thank you very much for your responses. They're always very prompt and informative. But as a citizen, I have great concerns about what's happening there. So if the town could please keep a very close eye so that also the other issue that's raised by seeing how close that house will be to the road, if we could start working on that bylaw that specifies distance from the road so that we have more green space, because that used to be such a beautiful area to walk by. Many nights I would walk down towards the Willow and hear all the frogs and it was lovely, and now it's not that anymore. So I just am asking the town to keep a close eye on it for not only myself but many other citizens that are expressing discontent with seeing a house go up there.
Thank you, June. No, thank you very much. Thank you. Are there other questions online? No. It does tear my heart when I see that type of excavation construction take place, but I also know that excavation is never easy, and eventually there will be reparation. I mean, you can see even with the house across the street, which actually is sited very nicely, I believe that once their landscaping and everything will be done, that will actually fit in much nicer than others that we've seen. So I think sometimes we just sort of have to let that go. But I agree with you that we need to, especially at the beginning of a project in such an awkward place, to keep on a regular watch just to make sure that they are following the bylaws and the requirements. And Ian has already assured me that they will keep an eye on that. So thank you, June. All right, moving on to the rest of the agenda. Section 3, urban planning and environment. So 3.1, Peter.
So 3.1 is 890 Main. It's a modification to the approved space. So this is a garage, a detached garage, I believe. Whereas the SPAPE of a permit request for major renovations of the detached garage at 890 Main was approved by Town Council on January 9th, 2023. The applicants modified the approved SPAPE, thus requiring new approval. So basically we went from 3 equal widths on the garage to the last one is actually a little bit wider, so they asked to keep the existing width. The doors, the width of the door. So TPAC was unanimous in their recommendation to approve the SPAPE for the permit request at 890 Main. En français.
3.1, 890 Main, il s'agit d'une modification au PIA approuvé. Donc, pour des travaux de rénovation majeure au garage, c'était un PIA qui avait été approuvé par le conseil municipal le 9 janvier, mais quelques modifications souhaitaient être apportées au niveau des portes de garage. Donc, une nouvelle approbation est nécessaire. La recommandation du CCU est unanime pour l'approbation du PIA, donc la résolution vise à approuver le PIA pour la modification du permis.
So I will need a mover and a seconder for the resolutions. Peter Mate moves, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. It is approved, carried unanimously. Item 3.2.
So 3.2 is 61 Léger. It's an accessory building. It's a gazebo. So a permit was request was received for an accessory building. TPAC was unanimous in the recommendation to approve the SPAPE for the permit request at 61 Léger for the gazebo.
3.2, 61 Léger, c'est un PIA pour un bâtiment accessoire au 61 Léger, je me répète. La recommandation du comité consultatif d'urbanisme est unanime à l'effet d'approuver le PIA, donc la résolution va en ce sens également.
We'll need a mover and a seconder. Peter Mate and Benoit Blais. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.3.
So 3.3 is 61 Osakoa. This is a shed. So a permit request was received for an accessory building, so the shed. Whereas the majority of the Town Planning Advisory Committee, TPAC, recommended conditionally to approve the SPAPE. So to approve the SPAPE of the permit request with the following condition, that the door of the shed be the same color as the door of the front facade door of the main building.
3.3, 61 Osekoa. Il s'agit d'une demande de permis pour un bâtiment accessoire. La recommandation du CCU est majoritaire pour l'approbation du PA, mais de façon conditionnelle. Donc, la résolution vise l'approbation du PIA à la condition que la porte de la remise soit de la même couleur que la porte d'entrée en façade du bâtiment principal.
Merci. Mover, Peter Mate, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.4, request for authorization for a purpose other than agricultural. This is for an application for authorization submitted to the CPTAQ that must be accompanied by a recommendation from the local municipality, so the town of Hudson. The request is for 146 Bellevue for use of for residential purposes on the entire lot. Whereas the lot in question already had a residential construction on the land, which was demolished by fire in 2001. Whereas this location is between two existing single-family residences and that the sector is already unstructured or destructured, whereas this request for authorization will have no real negative impact on existing agricultural activities and on the development of these agricultural activities, whereas the present request does not contravene the municipal regulations, whereas the majority of the Town Planning Advisory Committee's recommended condition, no, is it the same one? I've moved to the wrong one, sorry. I thought that was strange that they had to see that one. So this resolution is to support the request for authorization. There we go. It's a long resolution.
C'est beaucoup de pages. 3.4, 146 Bellevue, demande d'autorisation pour une fin autre qu'agricole. Donc, une demande d'autorisation qui est déposée à la CPTAQ doit être accompagnée par une recommandation de la municipalité. Donc, la demande qui a été reçue vise le 146 Bellevue pour une utilisation à des fins résidentielles sur l'ensemble du lot. Considérant que c'est un lot qui avait déjà une construction résidentielle d'implantée avant 2001, mais qui fut démoli par un incendie, considérant que cet emplacement est compris entre deux résidences unifamiliales existantes et que le secteur est déjà déstructuré, cette demande d'autorisation n'aura pas d'effet de réelles conséquences négatives sur les activités agricoles existantes ou sur le développement d'activités agricoles. Considérant que la demande ne contrevient pas aux règlements municipaux, la résolution vise à appuyer la demande d'autorisation.
Merci. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Benoit Blais moves, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. J'ai vu un crayon bouger, mais j'ai réalisé qu'il avait déjà appuyé, donc c'était pas lui. Item 3.5, filming authorization for Amalga Creations Télé 12 Inc. or Télé 12 Inc. Whereas a filming permit has a maximum duration of 60 days per our bylaws, whereas the production company intends to shoot the TV series over a total period of 8 months. This request is in no case authorizes filming outside the hours of filming permitted in the regulation or obstructions to traffic. This resolution is to approve only the extension of the duration of the filming permit until January 31st of 2024 under the established conditions, and that a letter of approval bearing the signature of all the immediate neighbors of the filming site must be provided before each block of filming.
3.5, autorisation de tournage, Amalga Création Télé 12 Inc. Donc, considérant qu'un permis de tournage plutôt a une durée maximale de 60 jours selon notre règlement. Considérant que la maison de production a l'intention de tourner une télésérie sur une période qui s'échelonnera sur 8 mois. Considérant que cette demande n'autorise en aucun cas la maison de tournage, le tournage plutôt, à l'extérieur des heures permises normalement au règlement, ni de procéder à des entraves à la circulation, la résolution vise à approuver uniquement l'extension de la durée de permis de tournage jusqu'au 31 janvier 2024 aux conditions qui ont été établies, dont qu'une lettre d'approbation comportant la signature de tous les voisins immédiats du site de tournage soit fournie avant chaque bloc de tournage.
Merci. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Benoit Blais, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections? Darren Legault. It is carried by majority. Did you want to speak to it?
No, just no? I do apologize for not letting you know in advance, but I did miss caucus.
Right.
So.
No, it's good. It's good. I think I know why but you could explain why you did.
I just find that the disruption, and fortunately, like I said, I missed caucus this month, so I wasn't part of the conversation.
Yeah.
I just find the disruption is too much, and the past history of filming companies has not been that great in my experience. So I just, I don't see the huge advantage for the town. So nothing more complicated than that.
Yes, thank you. Donc, ça a été passé. Item 3.6, tabling of the monthly report for permits issued in February of 2023. Members of council take note of the tabling of the monthly report for permits issued by the Urban Planning Department.
3.6, dépôt du rapport mensuel des permis émis février 2023. Donc, les membres du Conseil prennent acte du dépôt du rapport mensuel émis par le service de l'urbanisme.
Merci. Moving on to Section 4, Administration and Finance. Item 4.1, approval of disbursements for March of 2023. Accounts payables as of March 30th, 2023. This resolution is to approve the following disbursements for a subtotal of $1,105,120.52. With 3 payrolls, the total of accounts paid was $1,476,236.06.
4.1, approbation des paiements pour mars 2023. Donc, il s'agit des comptes à payer en date du 30 mars 2023. La résolution vise à approuver le paiement des comptes au montant suivant, soit un sous-total de 1 105 120,52, montant auquel on ajoute 3 versements de paye pour un total des comptes payés à 1 476 236,06.
Do I have a mover and a seconder for this resolution? Benoit Blais, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 4.2, International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. This resolution is to... I should change sides. There's more in yellow than usual. So sorry. Whereas May 17th is the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, which is celebrated in many countries and was initiated in Quebec by Fondation Émergence in 2003. Whereas there is a need to support the efforts of Fondation Émergence in the holding of this day, this resolution is that May 17th be proclaimed and marked as International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. I have been exchanging with the parents in the community, some who are aware of transitioning youth, and suggesting that rather than just raising the flag, we may look at doing events with youth, starting the weekend before and ending the weekend after. So stay tuned. We may come up with a couple of interesting events.
4.2, Journée internationale contre l'homophobie et la transphobie. Donc, considérant que le 17 mai est la Journée internationale contre l'homophobie et la transphobie et que celle-ci est célébrée de fait dans de nombreux pays et qu'elle résulte d'une initiative québécoise portée par la Fondation Émergence depuis 2003. Considérant qu'il y a lieu d'appuyer les efforts de la Fondation Émergence dans la tenue de cette journée, la résolution vise à proclamer le 17 mai Journée internationale contre l'homophobie et la transphobie et de souligner cette journée en tant que telle.
Merci beaucoup. Do I have a mover? I think it was Mark Ray first, seconded by Reed Thompson. They're getting very speedy on the left. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Thank you. Section 5, Town Clerk, that is Melissa's section. Item 5.1, intermunicipal agreement with St. Lazare to allow reciprocal and free access to municipal parks, whereas the intermunicipal agreement entered into in 2021 with the Town of St. Lazare to allow mutual and free access to municipal parks, whereas the Town of St. Lazare wants to offer free access to the residents of Hudson to its nature park, Les Forestiers de Saint-Lazare during winter, whereas the Town of Hudson wants to offer free access to Jack Layton Park to the St. Lazare residents as well as free parking near the park. This resolution is to enter into the intermunicipal agreement with the Town of St. Lazare to allow reciprocal and free access to municipal parks for the period from May 1st of 2023 to April 30th of 2024.
5.1, entente intermunicipale avec Saint-Lazare aux fins de permettre des accès réciproques et sans frais à des parcs municipaux. Donc, considérant qu'une telle entente est intervenue depuis 2021 avec la Ville de Saint-Lazare, considérant que la Ville de Saint-Lazare souhaite offrir sans frais aux résidents d'Hudson l'usage de son parc nature, les Forestiers de Saint-Lazare en hiver, considérant que la Ville d'Hudson souhaite offrir l'accès gratuit aux résidents de Saint-Lazare au parc Jack Layton, ainsi que le stationnement gratuit aux abords du parc. La résolution vise à conclure l'entente intermunicipale avec Saint-Lazare aux fins de permettre des accès réciproques aux parcs municipaux pour la période de 1er mai 2023 au 30 avril 2024.
Merci. Do I have a
quick point of clarification? This will allow Hudson residents free access to Les Forestiers in St. Lazare year-round, correct?
In the summer, it's already free,
It's already
so we don't need to specify. But yes,
Perfect.
It was verified.
Thank you.
Merci. Do I have a mover?
Yes.
Reed Thompson, seconded. Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? I see one hand up. It is carried with majority. Did you want to speak to it?
I do not. I do not view this as an equitable exchange of services at all.
All right. Thank you. Item 5.2, authorization to sign 2023 agreement for the issuance of daily parking passes, whereas the town wishes to authorize the Legion to issue daily parking passes to its users under certain conditions. This resolution is to authorize the town clerk to sign for and on behalf of the town an agreement with the Legion for the issuance of daily parking passes for the 2023 year.
5.2, autorisation de signature d'une entente pour l'émission de passes de stationnement journalière. Donc, considérant que la Ville souhaite autoriser la Légion à émettre à ses usagers des passes de stationnement journalières selon certaines conditions, la résolution vise à m'autoriser à signer au nom de la Ville une entente qui permettra à la Légion d'émettre des passes de stationnement journalières pour l'année 2023.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Darren Legault, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 6, Human Resources. Item 6.1, probation for March of 2023. Whereas Resolution R 2022-09-258, by which the town hired employee 1014 to the position of journeyman for the Public Works Department, whereas the town has no doubts as to the quality of the work provided by the managerial employees in question, whereas the employee meets the requirements of its function and that the probation is conclusive. This resolution is to confirm that the probationary period of employee 1014 is completed as of March 6th of 2023, and to confirm his position as journeyman for the Public Works Department, function 208, effective March 7th, 2023.
6.1, probation mars 2023. Donc, considérant la résolution par laquelle la Ville a embauché l'employé 1014 au poste de journalier, fonction 208 au service des travaux publics, considérant que la Ville n'entretient aucun doute quant à la qualité de la prestation de travail de l'employé en question et que celui-ci rencontre les exigences de sa fonction. Donc, la probation s'avère concluante. La résolution vise à confirmer que la période de probation de l'employé 1014 s'est terminée en date du 6 mars dernier et de le confirmer dans son poste de journalier au service des travaux publics, fonction 208, en date du 7 mars 2023.
Merci beaucoup. Moving on. Oh, I have to do a mover and seconder. Darren Legault will move, seconded by Mark Correa. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously.
Welcome aboard and congratulations.
Yes.
Hopefully he stays a long time.
Oh, I think he will.
Good.
I think he will. He's such a nice person. We like him. Section 7, Culture and Recreation. 7.1, Creation and Appointment of the Town of Hudson Cultural Policy Committee. This is the one I mentioned at the start of the meeting. Whereas the town wishes to adopt a cultural policy to clearly define the role of culture in our community and to establish a vision and orientations for the town's cultural development. Whereas Council wishes to establish a committee for the creation of the cultural policy composed of members involved in the life of the community and representing different sectors that interact with the cultural committee. Whereas a call for candidates was launched in February, this resolution is to create the Cultural Policy Committee and to appoint the following persons as members of the Cultural Policy Committee. So number 1 is myself, Chloe Hutchison as mayor. Number 2 is Reed Thompson, municipal councillor. We will be co-presiding this committee. Number 3 is Director of Culture and Recreation, so you've heard her name earlier, Elizabeth Wainwright. Number 4 is Chris Gabel. He's the president of the Hudson Arts and Culture Committee Council, and he will serve as the bridge between the two. And then person number 5, Kalina Skalska. Number 6, Clint Ward. Number 7, Cam Gentili. Number 8, Anil Prakash. So these people are also members of the HANCC, so the Hudson Arts and Culture Committee. They were instrumental in the preparation of that survey that will serve as the foundation to the committee. And then there is Caitlin Palmer, Rod Hodgson, Doug Buchanan, Heather Dubreuil, Chantal Perrault, Jean-François Tremblay, Jasmine White-Glutz, Jeanette Goulin, who's here in the room tonight, Joanna Olson, Sarah Wakani, and I've kept a space open for a member of the Hudson Garden Club, hoping that they will nominate someone to sit on this committee. So 19, it will be a very interesting process, and essentially there are, I believe, 5 to 6 meetings planned coming up in 2023, so it's about 1 every 2. And this is framed by the process established by the Ministry of Culture, but also well established as well and well framed by Les Arts et la Ville. So I trust that we will have very good results with this.
7.1, création et nomination comité de la politique culturelle de la Ville de Hudson. Donc, considérant que la Ville souhaite se doter d'une politique culturelle visant à définir clairement le rôle de la culture dans notre communauté et à établir une vision et des orientations au développement culturel de la Ville. Considérant que le Conseil souhaite mettre sur pied un comité pour la création de la politique culturelle composé de membres engagés dans la vie de la collectivité et représentant différents secteurs qui interagissent avec le milieu culturel. Considérant l'appel de candidature lancé en février dernier, la résolution vise à créer le comité de la politique culturelle et de nommer les personnes suivantes à titre de membres. Donc, Chloé Hutchison, mairesse et coprésidente, Reed Thompson, conseiller municipal et coprésident, la directrice de la culture et des loisirs, Chris Gobey, Kalina Skolska, Clint Ward, Cam Gentillet, Anil Prakash, Kathleen Palmer, Rod Hodgson, Doug Buchanan, Heather Dubreuil, Chantal Perrault, Jean-François Tremblay, Jasmine White-Glutz, Ginette Gaulin, Joanna Olson, Sarah Wakani et un membre du Hudson Garden Club.
Merci beaucoup. Do I have a mover? Reed Thompson, seconded by Doug Smith. Sorry, Doug, it's getting late. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. I'm very excited about this committee. I know we're going to have a lot of fun. So keep your ears and eyes peeled. It is my intent that there will be regular crossovers with the community where there will be opportunities for this committee to share where they're at with the rest of the public and continue to draw on ideas. Thank you. Item 7.2. Benoit, did you want to read this one?
No.
No? Appointment of members, Hudson Seniors Council. I'll get him eventually. He will eventually read the resolutions. The Hudson Seniors Council was created on June 6th of 2022. Whereas it would be beneficial to the work of the committee to increase its membership, this resolution is to appoint the following residents and councillor to the Seniors Council for the period of 2 years. Benoit Blais, Municipal Councillor, Colette Garot, and Sylvia Maury. So they will be added to the present committee, who meets once a month and is actually chapeauté, is directed by Laura McCaffrey, who's in the room with us this evening.
7.2, nomination de membres au Conseil des aînés d'Hudson. Donc, considérant que le Conseil des aînés a été créé le 6 juin 2022, considérant qu'il serait avantageux pour le travail du comité d'augmenter le nombre de ses membres, la résolution vise à nommer les personnes suivantes au Conseil des aînés pour une durée de 2 ans, soit Benoit Blais, conseiller municipal, Colette Garot et Sylvia Maury.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Benoit Blais, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 7.3, 2023. Did you want to give an update on where, Benoit, on what that committee is up to?
Sorry.
Did you want to speak? There's priorities that were set this year, right, by that committee?
Yeah.
Did you want to bring those up?
I don't have them in memory. So.
No? Okay, next time.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will get them, I'm telling you. Item 7.3. 2023 townwide garage sale. Whereas the town wishes to organize a townwide garage sale, this resolution is to authorize the organization of a mega garage sale on Saturday, June 10th, 2023, with a postponement the following day in case of rain, to approve the donation of all funds collected by the issuance of permits to the Hudson chapter of Meals on Wheels.
7.3, méga vente de garage d'Hudson. Considérant que la Ville souhaite organiser une méga vente de garage, la résolution a pour but d'autoriser la tenue de cette vente de garage qui se tiendra le samedi 10 juin 2023 avec un report en cas de pluie au lendemain, et d'approuver le don de tous les fonds recueillis par l'émission des permis à la popote roulante d'Hudson.
Mover, Darren Legault, seconded, Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 7.4, tabling of the February 2023 Arts and Culture Council report. So actually it's the report for the year of 2022, but they prepared it by the time we received it. It was in February. They adopted it in February in their council. But it basically gives you a bit of a portrait of what they were working and the policy, not the policy, but the survey. So anybody who's on the culture policy committee could start there to get a finer idea of what they've been working on. En français.
7.4, dépôt du rapport de février 2023 du Conseil des arts et de la culture. Donc, les membres du Conseil municipal prennent acte du dépôt du rapport de février 2023 du Conseil des arts et de la culture.
Merci. Ça sera disponible sur le site web cette semaine, Laura, I would think. Yeah. Section 8, Public Works, Ian's favorite section. Item 8.1, Road Salt, UMQ, Purchasing Group, Season 2023 to 2027. Whereas the town wishes to participate in this group purchase to obtain road de-icing salt in the quantities necessary for its activities, this resolution is that the town confirm its membership in the group of purchases managed by the UMQ for 4 years, i.e. until April 30th of 2027.
8.1, celle de déglaçage, regroupement d'achat de l'UMQ pour les saisons 2023 à 2027. Donc, considérant que la Ville désire participer à cet achat regroupé pour se procurer le sel de déglaçage des chaussées dans les quantités nécessaires pour ces activités, la résolution vise à ce que la Ville confirme son adhésion à ce regroupement d'achat géré par la UMQ pour 4 ans, soit jusqu'au 30 avril 2027.
Merci. Moved by Doug Smith, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is adopted unanimously or carried unanimously. Item 8.2, awarding of contract AO 2023-02-TP, landscape maintenance of flower beds and gardens, whereas the town has several garden beds to prepare, plant, and maintain during the summer season, whereas a call for tenders by invitation was issued on March 8th of 2023, whereas the following bids were received. There is one, Le Jardinier Campagnard for $17,000. This resolution is to award, so in English the name of the company is The Country Gardener, being the sole and lowest conforming bidder, the contract for garden maintenance for an amount of $17,000 before taxes.
8.2, octroi de contrat pour l'entretien paysager de plates-bandes et jardins. Donc, considérant que la Ville a plusieurs plates-bandes à préparer, à faire la plantation et à entretenir pendant la saison estivale. Considérant également qu'un appel d'offres sur invitation a été lancé le 8 mars dernier. Et que les soumissions reçues, il y en avait une seule en fait, soit du jardinier campagnard au montant de 17 000 $. La résolution vise à octroyer à le jardinier campagnard, seul et plus bas soumissionnaire conforme, le contrat d'entretien pour un montant de 17 000 $ avant taxe.
Très bien. Do I have a mover? Reed Thompson, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? Did you want to speak to that?
Just single only bid again. That's.
All right. So it is carried by majority. All right. Thank you, Doug. Item 8.3, awarding of contract AO 2023-08 TP janitorial services, whereas the town wishes to retain the services of a contractor for the cleaning of its buildings, whereas the awarding of said contract must be following a call for tender process. Whereas the following bids were received, there were 4 bids received. The first for Inter-Québec, Inc. for $135,628. The second bid for Unique Maintenance Publique, Inc. for $113,198.07. Third bid for Service Impeccable, Net, Inc., $88,740, and Entretien Kenny Melvin, Inc. for $82,650. This resolution is to award the contract to Entretien Kenny Melvin Inc., the lowest conforming bidder, the contract for janitorial services for an amount of $82,650 before taxes.
8.3. Octroi de contrat pour service de conciergerie. Donc, considérant que la Ville souhaite recourir au service d'un entrepreneur pour l'entretien ménager de ses bâtiments, considérant que l'octroi de ce contrat doit se faire au terme d'un appel d'offres, les soumissions suivantes ont été reçues. Donc, de la part de Inter-Québec Inc., c'était au montant de 135 628. Pour Unique Maintenance Publique Inc., c'était au montant de 113 198,7. Pour Service Impeccable Net Inc., c'était au montant de 88 740. Et Entretien Kenny Melvin Inc., 82 650. Donc, la résolution vise à octroyer le contrat à Entretien Kenny Melvin Inc., le plus bas soumissionnaire conforme, pour un montant de 82 650 avant taxe.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Reed Thompson, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any disagreements to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 9, Public Safety. So here we're coming into the Circulation Committee resolutions. Do you want to read them?
Sure.
Okay, read. Go for it.
Resolution 9.1, Road Network, Speed Reduction Measures for Lower Whitlock. Whereas the request received suggesting the installation of speed bumps on Lower Whitlock, whereas the town conducted a speed survey in March 2022 on Lower Whitlock Street, and that the speed below which 85% of vehicles travel is 40.4 kilometers per hour, whereas Council deems it unnecessary to proceed with the installation of speed reduction measures, this resolution is to deny the request to install speed bumps.
9.1. Réseau routier, mesure d'atténuation de vitesse Lower Whitlock. Considérant la demande reçue suggérant l'installation de dos d'âne sur la rue Lower Whitlock, considérant que la Ville a effectué une étude de vitesse en mars 2022 sur la rue Lower Whitlock et que la vitesse en dessous de laquelle circulaient 85% des véhicules était de 40,4 km/h, considérant que le Conseil juge qu'il n'y a pas lieu de procéder à l'installation de mesures d'atténuation de vitesse, la résolution vise à rejeter la demande d'installation de dos d'âne.
So I will need a mover. Reed Thompson, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise a hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 9.2.
9.2, Road Network, request to remove and install stop signs from Brisbane to Birch Hill. Whereas the request received from 2 residents from the area to remove or relocate the stop sign at the corner of Main Street and Brisbane Street, whereas the installation of the stop sign was adopted by a council resolution and was not specifically related to a quantifiable problem, therefore it is difficult to justify a change, whereas the installation of a stop sign at the corner of Birch Hill and Main is impossible due to the presence of a tree, this resolution is to deny the request.
9.2, réseau routier, demande de retrait et d'installation de panneaux d'arrêt de Brisbane à Birch Hill, considérant la demande reçue par 2 résidents du secteur pour le retrait ou le déplacement du panneau d'arrêt au coin de la rue Main et de la rue Brisbane, considérant que l'installation de ce panneau d'arrêt a été décrétée par résolution du Conseil et n'était pas spécifiquement rattachée à une problématique quantifiable, donc il est difficile d'en justifier un changement, considérant que l'installation d'un panneau d'arrêt au coin de Birch Hill et Main est impossible en raison de la présence d'un arbre, la résolution vise à rejeter la demande.
Mover, Reed Thompson, seconded by Mark Gray. I'm going to have to give it to Benoit at some point. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 9.3, Road Network.
Right-of-way request between Royalview and Sugarbush, whereas the request received from a resident of Royalview Street to create an access to Sugarbush Street via Royalview, whereas the lot 1834841 that would connect Sugarbush Street to Royalview Street is privately owned, considering that an expropriation process would be necessary, which is long and costly and must be thoroughly justified, Whereas that emergency services have the power to impose the passage of emergency vehicles on private property, this resolution is to deny the request.
9.3, réseau routier, demande de droit de passage entre Royal View et Sugar Bush. Considérant la demande reçue par un résident de la rue Royal View visant à créer un accès à la rue Sugar Bush via Royal View. Considérant que le lot en question qui relie la rue Sugar Bush à la rue Royal View est de propriété privée. Considérant qu'un processus d'expropriation serait nécessaire, ce qui est long et coûteux et doit être justifié de manière approfondie. Considérant que les services d'urgence ont le pouvoir d'imposer le passage de véhicules d'urgence sur un terrain privé, la résolution vise à rejeter la demande.
I will need a Benoit Blais, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 9.4, Road Network.
Request for a specific public parking lot at 416 Main Street. This would be at Treehouse. Whereas a request received from a parent with a child who attends the Treehouse Child Care Center to provide a dedicated parking space in a public parking lot. Considering that the parking is public, whereas that there are other parking lots available within walking distance in this sector, this resolution is to deny the request.
9.4, réseau routier, demande d'aménagement particulier au stationnement public du 416 rue Maine. Considérant la demande reçue par le parent d'un enfant qui fréquente le CPE Maison dans l'Arbre, demandant d'allouer un espace réservé aux usagers de la garderie dans le stationnement public. Considérant qu'il s'agit d'un stationnement public. Considérant qu'il y a d'autres espaces de stationnement disponibles à une courte distance de marche dans ce secteur, la résolution vise à rejeter la demande.
Merci. Do I have a proposal? Benoit Blais, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 10, bylaws. So thank you, boys, for the circulation committee. Well done on the reading. You should do them all from now on.
We'll talk.
Well, you have to save some from Benoit, too, right?
Right, yes.
Okay. Okay. Item 10.1, adoption of bylaw 743.2-2023, amending bylaw 743-2021 concerning parking, RMH 330-2021. Whereas notice of motion of this bylaw was given at the regular meeting of the Municipal Council held on March 6 of 2023. Whereas that the purpose of this bylaw is to update the parking bylaw, whereas the proposed bylaw tabled on March 6, 2023 was amended as follows. In Section 2, the second paragraph has been amended to remove the possibility of parking a trailer at the community center. This resolution is to adopt bylaw 743.2-2023 as amended.
10.1, adoption règlement 743.2-2023 qui vise à modifier le règlement 743-2021 relatif au stationnement qui est un RMH 330-2021. Donc, considérant qu'un avis de motion du présent règlement a été donné à la séance ordinaire du Conseil municipal tenue le 6 mars 2023, considérant que l'objet de ce règlement est de mettre à jour le règlement de stationnement et considérant que le projet déposé s'est vu modifié avec la version de ce soir de façon à ce qu'au deuxième alinéa, on rephrase pour retirer la possibilité de stationner une remorque au centre communautaire.
Merci. Doug has a question.
Like in French, toute remorque is all trailers, but in the English, like it's a little vague. I don't know if that needs to be.
Well, give me an example.
Defined. All trailers. Like in French, je pense que c'est toute remorque, all trailers.
Tout type de parking a trailer, but it says the same. Remove the possibility of parking a trailer, and the other one is une remorque.
Well,
it's the same. No?
I don't know if you want to. I don't know if it needs a little more definition than, because what is a trailer? Like a trailer, any trailer? Like.
I think anything that is pinned to your car that you're dragging behind is a trailer. It trails. But that would be me, right? Ça va? If we see it becomes an issue, we can be more specific next year. Does that work? Ça va? mover. On the left, anyone going to move? Yeah. Thank you. Mark Gray, seconded. Peter Mate. Are there any issues with the resolution? It is carried unanimously. Item 10.2, adoption, bylaw 762-2023 concerning exercising preemptive rights on the Town of Hudson territory. Whereas a notice of motion of this bylaw was given at the regular meeting of the Municipal Council held on March 6th of 2023, whereas there have been no changes to the proposed bylaw tabled on March 6, 2023, whereas that the purpose of this bylaw is to determine via bylaw the territory in which its preemptive right may be exercised and the municipal purposes for which immovables may be acquired by the town by right of first refusal. This resolution is to adopt the bylaw 762-2023.
10.2, adoption du règlement 762-2023 relatif à l'exercice du droit de préemption sur le territoire de la ville d'Hudson. Considérant qu'un avis de motion a été donné à la séance ordinaire du Conseil municipal du 6 mars 2023, considérant que le présent règlement ne comporte aucune modification au projet déposé, considérant que le règlement a pour but de déterminer le territoire sur lequel le droit de préemption peut être exercé et les fins municipales auxquelles des immeubles peuvent être acquis par la Ville par droit de premier refus, la résolution vise à adopter le règlement 762-2023.
Merci. Do I have a mover for this? Benoit Blais, seconded by, I see him, Marc Garay. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. This is a very useful tool for towns to take back leadership on determining which areas are key. As Jim Duff pointed out, it's going to be key as well to put aside monies, as at this time there is only a 60-day period by which the town must purchase or has the opportunity to purchase when they receive the notice. And we all know that if we have to go to a loan bylaw, then that is then opposable by the public and takes 3 months minimum, plus the Ministry of Affairs. So I know that the ministry is looking to shorten that approval period, but at this time it's still, the law is 60 days. We don't necessarily have our eyes set on a property, but I know, Jim, when we were in council together with Darren, we certainly thought that properties where there had been a certain amount of public subsidies and support, that those ideally should stay within reach of the public or for public good, rather than fall into the hands of promoters who get to make profit on properties such as churches or even the Legion, for example. Not the Legion, but the Manoir. So that is where this is headed, but we're not being very, we at least now have the foundation with which to work. I believe that's one more. 10.3, notice of motion and tabling of draft bylaw 761-2023 concerning active roads. I will need a councillor to give notice of motion that he would move or cause to be moved at a subsequent session of council the adoption of bylaw 761-2023 concerning active roads. So Reed Thompson has raised his hand. The purpose of this bylaw is to establish and oversee the active roads project, which consists of designating certain active roads to encourage driving slow due to the presence of walkers, cyclists, and children, and to authorize free play on some of these streets while ensuring the safety of participants.
10.3, avis de motion et dépôt du projet. Règlement 761-2023 relatif aux rues actives, le conseiller Reed Thompson donne avis de motion de l'intention de soumettre pour adoption à une séance ultérieure du Conseil le règlement 761-2023 relatif aux rues actives et en dépose le projet. L'objet de ce règlement est d'établir et d'encadrer le projet rue active qui consiste à désigner certaines rues actives pour favoriser une conduite lente vu la présence de marcheurs, de cyclistes ou d'enfants et à autoriser le jeu libre sur certaines parties de ces rues tout en s'assurant de la sécurité des participants.
Merci. So are there any new business? Anything we want to raise? New business? No one? Good. The second question period, then I will open it. Anyone who would like to come to the microphone, ask questions in the room, and again, we will alternate between the room and online. I see a person standing up. Yep. Please go ahead.
Just a clarification. For the contract for the landscape maintenance on flower beds, is the Halcrow History Garden beds, are there going to be some help afforded by the town to that?
I believe we're using the same provisions that we had last year, and that's already been included, correct?
Meaning opening, closing, meaning?
Exactly the same as was done this year. So it was a number of hours for cleaning up in the spring, cleaning up in the fall, and any extra help I think that was needed.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any questions online? Please go ahead. Oh, but, yeah, okay, related to that one?
No, okay.
Sorry. You can come back at the end.
All right, Jim Duff.
Jim, go ahead.
Yes, Mrs. Mayor, thank you very much for clarifying that bylaw 762 concerning preemptive rights. That makes a lot of sense, and I'm really happy to see that. And also, I want to thank you and the council, especially Mark Gray, for putting together the machinery, the legislative machinery that allows the transfer of a pedestrian walkway in an enclave neighborhood, mine, so that we have the option of not having to walk on Côte St. Charles. I wanted to thank you, and I think that's a really good step forward. All of these things are good steps forward. One thing I would suggest, though, is that is there any use, any utility in declaring something an active corridor, putting in those oval yellow signs that you see in Point Claire and in other parts of the West Island?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm talking about?
I think that will probably come out of the Plan Directeur des Parcs et des Sentiers, which staff and a lot of councillors are very antsy to get going. But yes, indeed, to identify for people who don't necessarily know where the paths are. In this case, you may already know, Jim, the people who sold that strip of their property asked that there be a visual or a physical barrier between their property and what is now public property, just so that people don't freely just continue to walk through their property. So, and in their case, they were happy with just having like a nautical rope, essentially strung, looped across posts. But I think that certainly through the Plan Directeur, we'll look at different ways of, I'm going to use my French, but baliser, so identify and start to frame those networks.
Yeah, the other issue that would come up, and I suspect will, is how do you control parking? Because after all, they are public rights of way. How do you control it so that somebody not from the neighborhood would park at the entrance or near the entrance to the trail network, effectively blocking traffic? Do you put a no parking sign? How do we deal with that?
Those are all issues that we'll have to continue to, monitor and improve. But I would expect that, we already have signs that identify where there's a connection, a pedestrian connection, and typically people won't block that entrance. I know that those neighbors were asking that only residents of the Charleswood neighborhood come so that there wouldn't be street parking, but I think that becomes very proprietary and sort of avoids the whole notion of having a network of trails that runs through the town. So it'll have to be managed for sure, and we'll continue to monitor and to improve it as it happens.
Good, thanks.
You're welcome. Are there other questions? Oh, Jamie, you don't want to come to the, oh right, Helen, please come. I won't bite.
When you were giving the preamble, it's about 498
Yes.
Main. You said that there's also a request, an emergency demolition. I mean, what can you?
Une demande d'injonction in French. So it is where the owner goes to the court and asks that our rights be overruled, if you want, because of the dangerous state of the building. So the judge has to determine whether indeed the house is in that state of dangerosity, in French, dangerosité.
Yeah. So is it just somebody that the developer brings in and says, look, it's so dangerous, we have to just demolish it? Or
so
or
the court will have their
be...
process, right? It's now in the hands of the law, and the law, they have their process in determining. I can't go any further, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Not because there's no secret to it. It is in the hands of the person who will be determining what they require in order to make the best decision. The judge will decide what they require in order to make that decision. It doesn't, in my experience, it doesn't happen frequently, but it has to be taken seriously because what is being called into play is public safety. So it's a serious request. Right?
Okay, so
is that a good answer, Melissa? I have a lawyer in the room. Is that a good answer?
Does the town have anything to say or do in
we have, how do you say, contracted lawyers in this case who will be representing the town and who are working on the file. So obviously, they will be bringing all of their best expertise into this. Anytime that the town is brought to court, it has to represent itself, right? You know that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Ça va? Oui? I have my lawyer on the side who's making sure I don't say any des bêtises. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions? Are there other questions?
Yeah. Got a question online.
Please, yes.
June Penny.
Yes, June?
Hi there. Yeah, in relation to the demolition permit that you were just talking about, is that the White House next to the Vivry?
No, this is 498 Main, so this is the one next to the IGA.
Oh, so I was wondering about that appeal. Okay, so it did get appealed.
It definitely has been appealed, and we are doing our best to at least hear the owner. I believe that's in the 3rd week of April. And hopefully we will have a public then meeting for the appeal process before the end of April.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right. Moving on to our final resolution, Section 12, adjournment of the meeting. I will need a mover. Peter Mate, seconded by Reed Thompson, that the meeting be adjourned at 9:35 p.m. Are there any objections? Yes, it is carried with majority.
Speak to that. Would you like to explain?
What is it? En français? Tu le fais en français?
What would Doug like to explain?
Oh, yes, do you want to explain?
We're having too much fun. Let's keep it going.
Est-ce que je le note?
Make sure it's in the minutes.
Tu veux le faire en français?
La séance est levée à 9h35.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you everyone for your presence and participation.